afternoon. Mr. Chair, members of the board. This very brief update is really centered around a consent agenda item that you've got tonight with regards to setting a max real estate tax rate for the upcoming calendar year 2022. But before we get into that, a point of privilege, if I might, we received just this week, and this is an award that the county has received many times in the past, but this is from GFOA, sort of our governing agency that looks at our budget document, and certainly in this age of transparency and trying to get information in the hands of the public, the big push from this Board of Supervisors. We just got this back this week, and I thought I would just sort of kick off this work session with this, and we highlighted this quote because I just think it's really special. I've looked at these as long as I've been at the county, and I don't know that I've ever seen such a glowing recommendation or comment from one of the reviewers. This is a very tough process, and they go through it in great detail. But I think I won't read the whole thing to you, but for those that might just be listening, the middle sentence there I think is worth noting. Having reviewed budget documents for over 25 years, I must say this is one of the most outstanding of them all. And so I've got the budget team is back in the back corner there. If I could ask them to stand up for a second. It's not shown here on the slide, but they also received a special recognition for the performance measures and the data pieces that have now been installed in our budget. So that's a award above and beyond this that's not even shown here. But the team that's standing back there now, it's a new generation in the budget office. But I just wanted to report to you all that, sort of these core principles and all of these things that, we built the office on, they have taken all of, that heritage and that tradition and made it their own and really taken it to new heights. So they're really, in a tough year, you've heard that from a number of areas today. Some new folks learned some new things on the fly. They're doing fantastic work, and, this is one of those documents that I think the entire community at some point, has access to, or it's a place that they can go get information. It's really important that we make it the best that we can, and I think this is probably one of the best documents we've ever put forward to the residents of Chesterfield County. So just a quick recognition for the staff here. Now they need to get back to work, so they got another document to build, but
outstanding.
So to the matter at hand today, and you all have, and over the course of your last several meetings, really taken up tax relief as a very central topic of your work. There's no action on the first few here, but just shown for those that might be watching at home, it's been a comprehensive approach to tax relief. The BPOL piece, which really targeting at small businesses, now we have 2/3 of our Chesterfield businesses not paying on the rate schedule, is a significant achievement. The personal property piece hadn't been touched since the late 90s, raising that threshold for, as Dr. Casey describes it, that family that's got that third car, somebody learning to drive, it really sort of captures, those folks, or somebody who might just be, have a lower value vehicle, and you see 14,000 vehicles affected by that piece of work that you all have done. And then lastly, the elderly and disabled program just did that one, so that's in place now, so there's no ambiguity about what the program looks like going into the tax year, raising those thresholds, all three thresholds. Haven't done that in quite a number of years, by 6%, keeping pace with that Social Security piece. So those are already in place. The piece that's before you on your consent agenda today is really that real estate tax rate piece, and we're doing this a little sooner than we otherwise would. Typically, we'd bring this back to you in January. And again, what we're doing is a little bit strange the way this happens, but it's just the way that the code prescribes it. You're setting a max rate. So you cannot exceed, you can come below. So you set that tax rate ceiling. If you go to the next slide here, and I think this is important, we pulled this together. We actually had some of the budget folks that you just recognized. They went back as far as they could go to try to build that tax rate series all the way back into the 1970s, and they can't find anything lower than where we are today. So it's at least safe to say the last 50 years. And you see the downward trajectory, and I think you'd expect that in a growing, maturing community where economic development is a big push, you see really how those investments begin to diversify our tax base as we grow, and we're able to put, consistent downward pressure on the real estate rate. The only exception shown here is, during the Great Recession, when we were just 5 straight years of pretty, brutal impact on home values. We raised it a penny and then put it back as soon as we could, and so we have that track record there. But what's before you today is lowering that ceiling to 93 cents for your upcoming tax year. The reasons why we're bringing this to you today is I think it's important, all 5 of you have communicated to staff, that we want to send that early signal that we recognize that, through a lot of the successes that have been discussed here today, state of the county, other places, Chesterfield continues to be a place that people want to come. That puts upward pressure on home values. We recognize assessments are going to go up, and they're going to go up fairly substantially, certainly as compared to the last, 5 to 7 years. We've been in that 3 to 4% range. So we don't know the final numbers, but we are expecting somewhere potentially in the 8 to 10% range. So today, this action would lower the rate. Effectively, you're lowering the tax rate by those 2 pennies, but you can come down further if you so choose as you go through the remainder of the budget process. Not going any lower today, or at least the recommendation is not to go any lower, because there's still a lot of unknowns. You'll see at your dinner break today, the state news pours out each and every day, and we don't know how all that's going to shake out. It's a lot of unknowns, a lot of turnover down there, so we want to see how all that shakes out. We need to get your actual final numbers. And I think most importantly, as you all have seen over the last couple of years, it's really important to have a healthy and honest debate about what expenditure priorities are. So this sends a strong signal that, as it's been in every one of Dr. Casey's priority letters since he got here, looking for these opportunities to lower the rate. So we're making good on that promise, but we're also not choking out any debate if somebody says, well, I'd like to see what it would look like to invest in X, Y, or Z as you go through a budget process. Those priorities don't materialize, or this becomes a higher priority, you still have the ability before you adopt a budget in April to lower this rate even further, or to look at it and maybe set a 2-year path. I know that's the conversation we've had a little bit as well. Some reduction here, maybe some reduction in the next year, just to sort of mitigate that. So you have a lot of options, but certainly, the message we want to get out to the community is we recognize your assessment notices show up in early January. They're going to be higher. We acknowledge that. We acknowledge that puts an impact on folks' income. And so we want to make sure we send this strong signal today, but also for those of you in the community who want to come before you at a public hearing, at a community budget meeting, wherever it might be, and advocate for further investment, they still have that ability to do it. You haven't cut it to the point where you say, well, we can only afford to do X, Y, and Z. So trying to find that nice middle ground, if you will. With that, I'm happy to take any questions. Again, it's a consent item, just allows us to do the behind-the-scenes work to advertise the rate. We would bring you back all the rate scenarios paired with those expenditures as we get the budget kicked off in January and February.
Thank you. Any questions, board members?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I appreciate you sharing that you think, and I know we don't know the number yet, but it's probably 8 to 10%, because as we reviewed the public comments for this meeting that were posted on the portal, there was some concern from at least one citizen that was going to be at least 20%, and they had some math that didn't necessarily add up. So I hope that you're correct and that it's no higher than that 10%, but we don't believe it's going to be anywhere close to 20, correct?
Well, I mean, the only caveat to that, Mr. Engel, is that's an average. We're looking at those, high-level statistics. There may be pockets where it's higher or lower, but we will do, come before you, I think, given the importance of this topic, and do sort of a detailed presentation. Mr. Bloomfield and his team can come and, you're going to do the individual briefings, but I think maybe at a future board meeting to kind of bring back, not only on the residential side, but some commercial segments and how they've fared as well. So we'll bring all that information, but on average, yes, I think 8 to 10 is a fair range for what we know today.
It'd be an anomaly if there was a 20% increase.
Yes, sir, I do believe that's true.
Chair,
Yes.
what month in the process will the assessor come before us and give us their information once they complete
I think we would do that typically in your February meeting. That's when we bring the revenue side of the budget right before the expenditure side. And I think we can have a more meaningful conversation about those expenditure scenarios as well, and then present the final plan in early March. So I think, that would be, and use really kind of January to get you all briefed up on what's going on, print the maps, make sure we've got our story together, and then have Mr. Bloomfield here with the budget team in February.
I think it's important to get that information out, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Other questions? Thank you, Mr. Harris. Appreciate it.